I'm really pleased to have Stephen SJJ on the stream with me today. I want to do a couple of series with uh, based around what Dr. K is saying. He seems to be very popular with gamers and young men, and I think he's got some insight into some of the problems, but I think he doesn't have the solutions. I think Islam does. If you know my stream, I'm a Muslim, and we've got Stephen, who I think he's an atheist because last time we debated, he was strongly, in favor of the idea that God does not exist. Is that right, Stephen?
Well,
You're an
pretty
atheist?
much. Look, I'm waiting for evidence, basically.
Cool.
Show me the evidence that I can accept. I'm very autistically, empirically minded, I guess, to a fault.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And we had that autistically, empirically minded discussion last time, but people can make of it as what they want. So let's play this video. Yeah, I
Okay,
think
let's go.
the background is that there are a massive number of people men committing suicide in the West. So it's pretty important stuff. Let's play
The
it.
number one thing that correlates with male suicide is not depression. This is super scary. There's one study I saw recently that suggests that 50% of men who kill themselves have no history or evidence of mental illness. I believe the statistic in my clinical practice because I know what depression looks like. I know what bipolar disorder looks like. And half the men that I work with, at least, are not actually mentally ill. See, mental illness means a pathology of the mind, which means that the mind is malfunctioning. Most of the suicidal men that I work with, their mind isn't malfunctioning. They genuinely have a life that is no longer worth living. They're looking at things and objectively realizing that there's no way out of the situation. So they turn to suicide. So I know it's kind of like a very controversial statement, but I think that's what my clinical practice has shown. And there's some research to even back that up. So if we sort of look at what's going on with men, they have nowhere to turn to. And the number one thing that correlates with it is not mental illness, but is a sense of thwarted belongingness. But basically what happens is what causes people to kill themselves is they try to connect with others and they get rejected. So the number one thing that correlates with
So, Stephen, what are your thoughts about this video? What you've got to say?
Well, first off, I've never heard of this guy before, so he's new to me. So maybe I'll look up his other stuff. Is he a clinical psychologist?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. That's what psychologist of some sort. Yeah, he talks to a lot of gamers, live streams with them, solves their problems and stuff.
Yeah, because he said like the guys that he comes across don't have depression, they're not BPD. Look, in general, Khaled, there is a crisis of masculinity in the world and how we fit in as men. The dark truth of being a male in this world is that if you're not valuable, you don't mean anything in this society. Women and girls, they are loved just for who they are. But you and I, as a male, if we don't bring something to the table, if we're not valuable, we don't have any meaning. We're discarded, we're ignored. And so, in the very materialistic society that we live in now, and particularly in Western societies, I'm sure this will resonate with you, and that you believe people should come back to faith. In materialistic societies that we live in today, if we are one of those men who are below the line of being seen as valuable to others, then you don't have any worth. And that is a very dark place for a man to be. And when he recognizes that, he can think of like the worst options. So that's my initial thoughts.
Yeah, I'm glad you shared that because what I want to say as well is that we've got to understand that a lot of people feel this way. And I like this video because it doesn't just say you're crazy. There are people do things for good reasons. We're not saying it's good to commit suicide, but people have their reasons. And and I want to talk about some of the things you pointed out. So you said if you don't have any value, there is some sort of evolutionary truth. It sounds really harsh, right, to put it this way, but you do have to bring something to the table in relationships. That's the harsh way of putting it. For example, why do people go for strong or intelligent or something? Why do women, I should say, go for those values, right? Um, and actually, they don't even do that nowadays. That's part of the problem. Um, so I want to pick apart that idea as well, bringing something to the table. I think Dr. K, does say something important about um, the lack of relationships people have in the West. I would also like to say it's not women. Women are valued in their early maybe 20s, and then they become valueless quite quickly. So they suffer as well. So there's suffering in lots of different directions, and I want to talk about solutions. And I suppose one or two things I want to put out there just to begin with, because I want to make this a free-flowing discussion. I want to see where you take it, SJJ. I mean, Stephen. Okay, we're all okay. If you're lacking relationships, first of all, we were all born to parents. So what about those relationships? We might have had brothers and sisters. What about those? So, and a lot of people don't manage even those relationships. The worst time for families is Christmas. That tells us that we're not even good with basic relationships. So if we can't do that, then shouldn't we be questioning our ability to maintain relationships? At this, and then, but I want to say something maybe more positive about what people can do, because people are suffering a lot. Men are suffering a lot as well, but everybody's suffering a lot.
Well, maybe we can get to the solutions after we've talked about causes. Huh?
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay. I would say one cause is okay. So the way
one you brought up then resonated
Yes.
with me. It's something that Claire talks about. She, for all her faults, Claire does hit on some very, truths. One of them is this like cyclical thing where like bad parents beget bad children. Okay, absolutely. Single parent families, this type of thing. You have a higher incidence of criminality, promiscuity, all these kinds of things, and we can see this even in like classes in society. So like if you're born to working class parents, you're almost certainly going to live a working class life. It becomes ever harder to lift yourself up out of it, and it kind of takes a special spark of something to lift yourself up, especially in society today, as we're competing with each other on a much wider scale today, rather than just in our localities. We're competing like with the world, and especially Zoomers. Khaled, I don't know if you ever realise what it's like for the
Tell me what
Zoomer
a Zoomer
generation.
is. What age?
Zoomer from like 19, I think the age is 1996 or 7
Oh,
to
wow. Okay.
to yeah. That would be the oldest Zoomer.
Okay.
Okay. So born just before 9/11, and for the generation after that, up to about 2012 or 13. That's the Zoomer generation. So Zoomers were born... Well, the Zoomer generation is the ones who, in their teens, came online. The world came online when Zoomers were teenagers.
Right.
For them, this means that you compete online. You compete online for jobs. You compete online for girls. Everything is online. You compete online for attention. And there's this vast sea. The world now is available to you on your phones, with which you interact with the world. And there's a vast ocean of people out there. And this ocean is like deafening. It's deafening,
Sure.
and it's ever harder to put your head up above like the waves and be noticed.
Right.
So, there's this a much wider feeling of
Do you think there's any way to
meaninglessness.
escape this being part? Because, like, for example, One of those oceans might be online dating, but I've never really had to use it. In fact, I tried it a little bit, like here in Jordan, and all I got was like lots of gay men trying to hit on me. So
Oh
I think I
wow.
lasted about less than 24 hours. But you know, I've got a wife. I'm getting another wife in about in another month's time. I think you know about that.
Yep.
I must have mentioned it. So like. Is there a way of is there light at the end of the tunnel, like of escaping this ocean of stuff that's not working very well?
Yeah, people try to distinguish themselves in ways which aren't healthy actually usually. Like you'll see people acting out, acting the fool. Like online, people try to do the craziest things. In society,
But
people
that's
try to do the
staying in
craziest
the
things.
ocean. Why don't we just escape it and do like
Well,
I didn't do that ocean of dating stuff. I just like done a Muslim community thing, and the Jews they do a thing as well. They've got their community. They're having millions of babies.
sure.
You know what I mean? And some of the old religious Christians. And I would say that's a way of leaving this crap system, which is basically turned dating into shopping. 'Cause that's what it is. You'd spend less than 1 second
Yes, it
on
is.
a person. So your thoughts?
Well, the Zoomer generation is online. All I can tell you is, yes, there's some very isolated communities who don't who aren't eternally online, like Orthodox Jews or whatever. I even know
But
some
Muslims as well, they're not isolated. They're part of they I'm on YouTube, but I don't participate it in the same way on you on I don't use social media to get wives and stuff.
sure Zoomer Muslims, I'm sure, are on YouTube.
Yeah, but Zuma Muslims also use
And
arranged
I just
marriages to get married.
sure. So they still have these legacy systems with which they can, yeah, in terms of dating, yeah, they have these other systems.
You
I'm
mean
just talking about,
not legacy, better you would say because they get results maybe. No?
well, whatever you might think of it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I've no experience of them. I don't know if it works or not. I don't know how successful the marriages are or whatever. But look, it's just a wider point that the Zoomer generation came on. The internet came online when the Zoomers were in their teens. They effectively immersed themselves within it. In order to be noticed, they have to stand out somehow. And standing out is pretty hard. You have to, if there's a million people and you want to stand out, you really have to stick your head up high and shout and yell and do a crazy dance or whatever. So it becomes ever harder to distinguish yourself, and particularly in the dating game. You're right about it being a shopping experience, but the shopping experience is one-sided. It's all in the women's.
Yeah.
It's men who are on the shopping shelf and women who are doing the choosing.
Yeah. Because
And it
men
breeds
just
this.
generally just like accept like a million women, hoping that somebody like I'm doing this
Yeah,
thing on the side because I'm not sure exactly left or right, but I think what was it? What's the main app that people
Tinder.
use for Tinder, right? And you swipe right probably for the person you like, right? I
Yeah,
know. So you swipe. I think men swipe right like a million times in the hope that a woman would swipe right for them and they'd be matched or something like that. How does it feel though? How does it what is the experience? I would guess it sounds like it's very demolarize. I don't even know the words. But how do you say the word? Demolarizing? No.
demoralizing. Yeah.
That's the word. That's the word. I mean, I found it really crap just spending 24 hours on that app. So, what's your experience?
Well, I've never actually used Tinder. Okay,
Okay.
so whilst I say Zoomers are eternally online and stuff, it's one thing I've never actually used is the dating app Tinder. So, but I can tell you the experience. Oh, lots of my friends have had the experience. The the statistics are that men will date down several levels. This is just the way the way we're made. Men are more, I don't know, sexual, looking for easier hookups than women. Women are looking to date up, either date up socially, date up, men of higher status, wealth, power or good looks. It comes in one of those categories. So, and they have the option to do that because we now have this market online. They can just keep swiping until they find a guy in one of those categories that's acceptable to them, and choose them. Because men have less options, effectively, we date down, or because we're more eager, we will date down several levels. So we have the scale of like, we will rate women 1 to 10. And like if a man is a 6, then he will date probably down to a 2, even.
Cool. Yeah.
And if even Chad, who's 10 out of 10, will probably date down to a 7.
Sure.
Whereas
And
women date
is that
up.
a bad thing? Is that a bad thing? Because that's my strategy. My first wife's from Jordan here, relatively like, I don't know, I can't say poor, but whatever, like less advantaged as compared to me, right?
Yes.
Second wife that hopefully I'll marry next month from Ghana, also same situation. It's just a strategy at the moment, and I'm even thinking of turning into a business to help other people find wives. So,
Sure.
I mean, it's a strategy, and also like that's reality at the moment. It's not a great reality because I think women are losing out as well by chasing like millionaires that they can't even attain in the first place. But I think, how do you feel? Like, isn't that reality? Is that particularly bad? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
No, it's just the way that it is, because we're looking for different things as men and women. Men predominantly are looking for sex and, it starts with sex, basically, let's be honest. That's what men are looking for.
I agree.
And then, and then everything downs after that. Women aren't. Women are looking for a better life. Women are looking to be provided for. Women are looking to move up in social circles. Women are looking, for a man they can show off. So we're looking for different things. This causes the situation where women date upwards. So we have women who have like 5s will be looking only for men who are 7s and 8s or whatever. Women who are 2s will only date 6s, will only start at 5s or 6s, whereas men will date down. So what this does is it's the phenomenon of female hypergamy, where women dating up, the guys at the top are dating most of the women. And this leads for loneliness at the bottom of the hierarchy, obviously. And many men don't realise that many men, unfortunately, don't realise just like how low they have to go if they're not going to remain alone forever. Like they could have options, but those options, are kind of unbearable to them.
Okay.
So they become incels.
Yeah. Okay. So, what do you think about solution? What solutions have you got for, let's say, atheists who don't want to be part of a religious community? Because being part of a religious community seems to be the only solution that I can see at the moment. Are there any other solutions that work for the average person, that you don't have to be exceptional?
No, I probably agree with you, to be honest. Okay, I'm probably happy, as the atheist in the room, I'm probably happy to agree with you that the best thing you could probably do is join an organised community where people really believe in it, and that tends to be religion. And so I nowadays say to people, you should do that. Where we depart is that I don't say to my friends, go and become, you should go and become a Muslim and join the other team, as I see it. I know you disagree, but
No
I would
problem.
tell them
I
to join.
encourage people to become good Christians, even myself.
Yeah, they should probably find something that is of their own tradition and that isn't too alien and in their local area, and join that. The problem, like in the UK, is that our churches are
Empty.
If
and
you go
old
to
people.
if you go to a local church, it's going to be like three old ladies in their 80s. If you're
Unless
lucky.
you go to a black church, like, why not? Are you interested in black women?
No, I'm not. I'm not personally.
Okay. Do they have? Are you like? I can't remember where you. I like. Do you only like white people? I can't remember what your views are exactly.
Look, sexual attraction isn't about race. It's different. It's different to racism. It's not about racism. You are attracted to what
That's
you're
all right.
attracted to,
You have your taste.
basically. But if I'm being, let's be absolutely honest. I have this. I've talked about this with Claire. I have this phenotype, which I part of my existential angst is, I consider. I wonder if I should, pass down my phenotype because it's one of the rare ones. I'm like
What? You a
blonde
ginger?
hair.
Oh, you're
No,
blonde.
I'm
Okay.
well, yeah, blonde hair,
This is not
blue
how you really look,
eyes.
is it?
No, this isn't. This is just the. This is actually the 4chan Zoomer,
Okay.
which everybody makes fun of. So, with the the broccoli hair. So look,
Okay.
when I became when I real when I got into like the dissonant right and I became racially aware, and this was a paradigm change because we're taught in societies to be blind about this kind of thing in
Mm.
order to try and produce these societies that work together under multiculturalism. So we're
Mm.
beaten. The idea that we're all the same is beaten into us, and to ignore our differences. When you kind of listen to stuff on the distant right, you become more racially aware. You realize, oh, whoa, I do have this racial inheritance. Whether it's not about supremacy or anything like that, but it's about maintain. Do I have an obligation to my heritage to maintain my line of descent, which has been like localized for a very well, according to 23andMe, has only ever been, in like basically in within a 1,000 miles radius. So basically, I'm interested in trying to
Yeah.
procreate with somebody who looks like me.
Sure. I mean, I'm happy for. I encourage. Like, I don't want white people to die out. I mean, I empathize with all kinds of people. I understand that you can't
We're
do
becoming
something.
browner. We're becoming beiger, aren't we, Callie? As people mix, we're all
Hmm.
becoming. If the trend continues, white people, will become rarer and rarer. The ones with the like, the
There's
recessive
maybe.
phenotype genes.
Yeah, maybe. I
Like
don't know.
blue eyes get bred out. It's a simple fact. They do get
Well,
bred out.
I tell you what. Brown people seem to like white people, and a lot of women are converting to Islam, and then the brown people are quite racist, quite openly, and they'll say we like white people with blue eyes, and so they'll reproduce that way. But yeah, they'll probably turn more beige in that sense. Yeah, they keep mixing like that. Who knows? I'm
Take
not too
yeah.
worried about that. I
I
only
know. I know.
empathize with you that you want to marry somebody and find somebody, and I empathize with all men and women, actually. So I don't really care what your preferences are. I want to help in whichever way I can, is my point.
Yeah, I'd like my children to look like me. You've heard that
They
Muhammad
will look
Ali
like you.
quote. You've heard that Muhammad Ali quote, haven't you? Where he talks about, that he's on that talk show, and the guy said, why do you want to date only? Why do you want to only marry a black woman? And it's
Yeah.
like, because I want my children to look like me.
That's a silly thing to say. That's a silly thing to say. Like my Arab white wife is quite white, so my children are something in between. Like I don't really care, quite frankly. And my kids are different kinds of brown. It really doesn't bother me. But
Well,
I,
there's
the only thing I would
some.
say to you is
Go on.
I want you to be more open to the kind of people you marry. So you know create more opportunities, and don't just look at their looks, but I think you would be better off looking for actual qualities as well, good qualities in them.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. Sure. I mean,
So okay, so that's one side of things, relationships. Dr. K is saying that's the key thing, and I think human beings are social, and that's really, really important. But there are other things that make you feel like crap as a man. If you think you're the bottom of the hierarchy, that doesn't help. How do you work your way up? Any thoughts? And I will share my thoughts afterwards.
Well, so your place in the hierarchy when you're young is determined by your class, effectively. If you are one, if you're one of these kids who are just churned out by your parents and aren't provided for, then you're effectively at the bottom of the heap and you have to work all the way up. So it's upon your shoulders entirely. Now, this isn't the case for all youngsters. Like, at 18, when free college stops, you have a choice. Do I go? If I have the grades, I can go to university and I have to fully support myself. Now, some kids will be fully supported through that process for the next 4 years by rich parents. So it really is a class thing. Now, this is why children of rich parents end up immediately propelled into the higher classes immediately. They are just helped up. It's the next generation reaching down and pulling, the next generation up with them. Now, if you're not that, you have to basically work your ass off. You have to work your ass off, and you have to become a high earner. That's the way that you gain in society, effectively, in our materialistic Western society.
My experience within my own family, I don't want to be too personal, because we might take offense in my family, but the richer, how do I say it? Well, I'll just say it. So when I was young, when I was a kid, we were poor, but my dad increasingly did well. And so by the time the youngest person in our family, my family doesn't even watch this, so it probably doesn't make a difference, was born, we were pretty well off. And he was I would say, the least able. So being poor is pretty good, actually. It gives you some, you become pretty weak. I'm actually scared of my kids having too many things. Because then they become complacent and weak and expect things just to be handed to them. So being poor is not even a bad thing. It's actually, there's loads of people who are really rich who go downhill because they had everything handed to them. And you have to, in life, to be successful, you've got to learn to be tough. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's also true. There's some truth in that. That adversity breeds strength. When you struggle for something, you understand the value of it. I mean, there's all these anecdotes of in Africa they go and give poor people mosquito nets for free, and within a few months they've got holes in them, ruined them, mistreated them. Whereas if they make them pay a couple of dollars for the mosquito net, they look after it, and it's still good in a couple of years' time because they had to pay for it. So you're right about this, absolutely. But there's also the thing that just being poor in your early stages of life is, it's not a leg up. Some people just can't lift themselves out of poverty. Okay, and so I do believe that generational wealth is an absolute massive factor of
what could be a mindset so you do become a successful person? Because I would say a lot of the most successful people were not particularly well off. There's loads of examples of that. Loads of examples the other way around as well. But a lot of people like Elon Musk, I'm not sure if he's the best example, really had a really tough time. He had nothing when he came to Canada, and then I don't know. A lot of people are like that. So I've got some ideas. You know what? I'll just share some ideas about what can make a person successful from the Islamic point of view. One is to count your lucky stars. So there's a phrase that's, I think, quite popular in the public because of some particular MMA fighter, Khabib. He said Alhamdulillah, which means all thanks to God. Have you ever heard that phrase?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Muslims say that for like absolutely everything, right? And they don't take credit much for their own work because they think God gave me the brain and I used it and God helped me. And they often feel that as well, right? I feel that all the time actually, but that's a sort of another discussion. So if you're constantly being grateful, one, you feel more positive, but also you focus on the things you have that you can use to move upwards. So I think that's useful. I think generally being grateful is known in the West, I think, as a useful tool for positive psychology and possibly moving up. What do you think about that? That's one idea.
Sure. So you said to thank your lucky stars, being grateful. Absolutely. So, yeah, I can see that. Look, I think, Khaled, where we're going to differ on this is I believe that it is basically the fortune of your genes that makes you successful. I generally have a materialist viewpoint wherein you are the product of a random shuffling of genes at the moment of your conception, and it's like a lottery. Some people luck out, and some people lose the lottery. And the people like Elon Musk are the ones who won the genetic lottery. Now, it's not. Some people win the genetic lottery in that they, they end up 6'4" with a chiseled jaw and really good genetics physically. Other people get it in brains.
So
Other
you
people
can't make good choices. Is that what you're saying?
I think we have limitations of our genetics. We are limited by our genetics, and we can maybe lift ourselves up beyond them. Something like, to pull a number out of my head, maybe like 20%. It's a limiting factor, a big one in my worldview.
Okay, so what I see is, and I'm not trying to be just difficult, and maybe this is wrong. You correct me, right? I see a lot of immigrants coming in. They don't have chiseled jaws or anything. They look like crap, and they work really hard. I'm not sure what genetic lottery they've won, and they slowly work up, work up. When I was small, I was called a packy all the time. We'd have stones thrown through my auntie's window and stuff. That same area is just taken over by Muslims and brown people, and there's still a few white people there, right? So, and that's just a lot of hard work. I'm not sure where is the genetic lottery in that story. That's what I don't get. I think it's just hard work. And not, sorry, let me correct that. It's hard work, but also it starts with belief that everything happens for a reason. There's a God. You keep praying, you keep working. There's no accidents. Like if you have a struggle, it's designed by God for you to learn. So you kind of work you positively go through those challenges rather than complain about them, because you know it's there. You learn something from it, and you do. Everybody learns things from them if they take a positive attitude. And just throw in one more idea, all of that doesn't make sense unless if you believe there's a God, then there's a purpose and a meaning to all this struggle. And if you don't believe in God, then everything, and I've noticed it with atheists that I talk to, everything, every tiny thing seems to be a struggle. Like this person looked at me the wrong way, whatever, and then they're deflated. And I don't even notice those problems. Me personally, like if somebody's rude to me, it's like, whatever, man, it's just your words. So those are kind of my feelings, like religion, work ethic. I can't see how genetics is really the crucial element there.
Okay, so to address your question head on, right? How many Pakistanis make it to the UK? Probably like what, 1%?
Sure.
Okay, so the answer to your question is, from the materialist point of view, is the genetic lottery that was it you who came here or your parents?
My parents.
Okay, so your parents were like in the 1% of Pakistanis who had the get up and go, who had the entrepreneurial spirit or whatever it was within them to decide to cross frontiers, get up out of their society, and head to a new one. That takes a lot. That puts them probably in like the top 1% or top like 0.5% of the population of Pakistan who have that will to strive for something better. So in that way, yes, that's that. And my belief would be that is, whatever it is, a large proportion. That's genetics, and then your circumstances in life obviously do play into it. Of course, circumstances, your mindset, your upbringing, the events that happen to you in early life, whatever it is. But I believe a large part of it is genetic, and certainly like the example of like someone like Elon Musk. I mean, he's successful because he's, extremely high IQ. I mean, he couldn't have got there without the IQ. So it's definitely a component, but it's not all IQ. People who look at the alt-right or the dissident right and say, oh, they're IQ fetishists. It's not just about IQ. It's about these other factors, like about drive, these things that can't be necessarily qualified on an IQ test. Like your parents probably had drive, they probably had determination to elevate themselves out of that society through whatever. Now that could also be spurred on through life circumstances, and like 0.5% of people might just suffer so much that they flee, for instance. It's hard to say.
Yeah, so that's an interesting argument. Yeah, it makes some sense, and I like to always say whenever I hear something that makes sense, just to acknowledge that. And Claire's been making a lot of interesting comments. I think it's along the same lines of what I just said. It's not just the genes. She's not saying it's not just the genes, but she's saying there's traditions and expectations that help us move forward. So what do you think about that? Let me put it this way, because we've already I've already put forward the idea that there is a sort of way of thinking. You can call it religion, you can call it tradition. What traditions could white people, because I just want white people to be successful. I want you to be successful. I'm not against anybody, right? I'm for everybody. What traditions could white people bring back? Because I'm not even sure what British values are anymore. So you guys can be successful, breed more, have more white people. I'll be very happy about that.
Well, it's a difficult one, obviously, Khalid. I mean, the spirit of the English people, whilst what most people on the dissident right don't want to hear, is that the spirit of the British people really was bringing the Enlightenment and classical liberalism to the rest of the world. We're called the mother of parliaments. We are the people that exported. Like I said, the dissident right don't want to hear this, but we exported the idea of representative democracy, meaning that you can't just be ruled over by a despot, and you have to have a say in your laws.
You're in England somewhere. What are you going to do now? Yeah. That's the past. What are you going to do now?
What are we going to do now? Well, my personal belief is that at some point we have to recognize that the British identity, and certainly the English, is under threat from being swamped by outsiders.
But what are you going to do to beat us? Beat the brown people? You can tell us to go away if you want, shut down your borders, but then have problems with farming and stuff like that. You could if you want. Okay, is that a solution? Let's just throw that out there. Is that your solution? Just shut down the borders, get rid of the brown people? Let's in a hypothetical kind of situation. Would that work? Would that solve everything?
No, obviously I understand the economic arguments for immigration. Again, unlike most people on the dissident right. So it could not be an immediate solution. But we have to acknowledge, first of all, that Englishness is an ethnicity that is worth protecting. that it should be protected. And this
Sure, go
this
for
this requires a sea change, where we say we are the true diversity, we are the true respecters of diversity. Okay, it's not the people who claim to be. We are the ones who want to maintain distinct ethnicities into like 300 years time.
Sure, do
But
that.
to
You know
look
what?
at
In Jordan, we don't believe in multiculturalism. We believe in a strong culture that everybody sings the same songs, the same food, whatever. So I don't even
Beautiful.
care about multiculturalism. Just have strong values and stick with those, and that'll be your culture. But what is the culture? What? That's my question to you. What is the thing that the culture, the rules? Give me some principles that white people are going to stick by. Because I think if they had a few principles that they're stuck by, they'd be so much stronger.
Well,
Give
let
me
me
one.
finish my let me
Go on, Karen.
let me finish my solution looking forward. Okay, so
Yeah.
we have to if we're going to save the English as an ethnicity, then we have to have a generational plan where somebody comes along, recognizes that in 300 years' time, the land of England should be inhabited by English people still. Okay, and this requires us to have a generational plan where we have to tell people, you have to have children again, for one. Maybe we have to support them. Okay, maybe we have to pay for these children. Okay, on a governmental level, I'm for that. Maybe giving golden handshakes to people once they've had like 4 kids, you get like £50,000. Boom, and you don't get a penny until you've had 4. But at 4, you get 50 grand or something like that. So it makes people go for the 4th. And then over that, we have to move to a Qatar-style immigration system where you don't get to stay here. You come on a work visa, and if you lose your visa, you have to go home. Okay, it's
Cool.
that simple.
Now, you know
And
that's been tried, right? In
Has it?
Sweden, and things like that. And it's
Well-
just the brown people taking advantage of it. They just immigrate there and have kids, and they get loads of money for it. I've got family there as well.
Oh yeah, well,
Sweden.
we wouldn't be offering the golden handshakes to foreigners. It would have to be people
Sure.
here. Yes, it would include
But the white people
some
not
foreigners
taking
would get
advantage
grandfathered
of
in.
it, no, that's the problem. Even though they're like crazy things, like you get 1.5 years of like your salary paid. Like I think that's 70 or 80% of your salary. So you go on a 1.5 year holiday every time you have a kid.
Wow.
In
And
Sweden,
you say they don't take advantage of it.
as far as I know.
That's crazy. Well, look, we either are going to exist in 300 years and we have to do something about making that happen, or we're not. And I don't
Yeah.
think if people really truly realised like the existential nature of the problem, at current birth rates, our population, the English is at current birth rates of it's below 1.5. That
Yeah.
means that the population shrinks by 25% per generation.
Yeah.
That is existential.
Yeah. What are you going to do? What's your game plan? So I want to talk a bit. We've talked a lot about relationships, but let's talk about you personally, because I like to make this personal so somebody gets something out of this. What's your game plan to getting married and having the 4 kids that you were talking about?
Well, I don't particularly have one. I mean, I'm an ADHD kid, Khaled, so it's difficult for me to actually like get my head out of my arse and do things that are difficult and different. So, I don't know is the answer to that. Basically, I think I'll start panicking when I hit 30.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Up until then, I'll probably coast and hope that it just happens. I know that's not a game plan, and I should be more proactive. But I've had like a few, bad, like a string of bad relationships recently.
Yeah.
Swore off women for a little while.
Yeah, and I totally understand it because I've tried
Right.
to have a relationship with Westerners, and they're nuts, quite frankly. Like you have lots of crazy mental problems, and that's not me just being rude, just trying to be clear about I'm not surprised that you're having a lot of problems because women are brought up in the West without values, and that's why they choose men the way they do on that app called Tinder. There's like spend less than 1 second. How do you look? How much money do you have? Not what are your values. They don't read through your bio. Do you know what I mean? So it doesn't surprise me. and this, you know what my solution is. They're going to have a religion, so they've got a set of values. They're brought up well, so that they can be good wives. And I can empathize that you've got a really difficult problem with the average white person. Would you agree with my kind of analysis of the situation in terms of women?
Yeah, I would. Particularly Zoomer girls. Yeah, it's a difficult one. Not all,
Yeah.
but most of them.
Okay. I mean, the fact that it's not all, let's try to get to a solution, right?
All right.
Okay. Do you know a good woman? Because you said not all, so there might be a good woman in your mind somewhere in your community that you know of. Is
Sure,
that
my mother.
okay? Really? Come on, like somebody you could date or marry.
So, I mean, obviously, I have dated. You know, I have dated. You know, like I said, a string of relationships. When I enter them, you think this is a good person. Obviously, you don't realize this is a crazy girl. What it is people hide. They hide their faults. You can, like the girl at work that you think has it together and is decent, honest, charming, or whatever. You know, you suddenly realize when you've spent time with them, like for a week outside of work, whoa, this person is, screwed up. They have, they're really screwed up.
Yeah.
They are not what you were expecting. And I think a lot of this is that people put up that they're so used to living a charade of a life, so they live a fake life, and social media has encouraged this. You know, if you know a Western woman on Facebook, and I don't just want to put down Western women, but so it might just be women in general. But if you just know a woman on Facebook, you don't know her at all. Everything that she puts on there is curated. Her photos are curated. They're only like the good shots of her. All the bad stuff is removed. So it's like this fake lifestyle. And many girls, like they falsely like actually imbibe this. They believe that this is like them.
However, I'm just thinking of a strategy to get results for you, right?
Yeah.
You talk to lots of women.
Wish I had
You
one.
spend like you're essentially interviewing them but you don't tell them you're interviewing them for 10 minutes, and you kind of try to find out something about their lives and try to look for red flags. Maybe, I mean, you could suggest a red flag. One of my red flags is drinking too much or drinking every night or something. Then I'll be like, forget that person.
Sure.
Are there any red flags that you
Tattoos.
Interesting.
Tattoos. Yeah.
Wow, you're religious already, because that's a irreligious. Muslims are against tattoos. I think Christians are against tattoos. I think Jews are. So that's really interesting, and I would agree. Yeah.
Crazy coloured hair, tattoos.
Yeah.
Obviously dressing like a slut.
You want a boring person. I'm not saying in a bad way. Like a boring person. I don't know if that's the right word, but that I get what you're saying. Like no tattoos, no crazy hair. But you're kind of basically talking about a religious person, really, if you're thinking about it, really, isn't it? That's what you're talking about. You don't want to be just plain boring, but maybe plain boring. Like you want that quiet
plain,
person.
maybe.
Yeah, plain. I would say, because I'm trying to sell this to you, because I want you to find a good wife.
Let's
right?
go. Come on. Hit me with the hard sell, Khalid.
Those plain women with their clothes off, they're going to look good. So don't. You know what I mean? In fact,
I'm attracted to like I say, like the ugly duckling.
Oh, that's good. That's a good.
Who can be transformed into a swan.
Yeah, and in fact, I think the one
who doesn't know that she's pretty, the girl who doesn't know that she's pretty. I think that is a great
and
archetype.
other people don't either, right? So the ones who are like wearing lots of makeup, I would stay away from them as well. And the ones who wear really expensive clothes, that's just trouble for the future because they're high maintenance, right? So all these, those people are the ones that get the most attention. But I would go for the ugly duckling. So if people take anything away, I would say go for those people. I bet they're nicer people. Do you know what I mean? People you actually want to have a relationship with, and then when their clothes are off, they're probably a good good fuck, quite frankly. You know, better than a self-indulgent narcissist kind of person. They're not going to be good sex either. Do you know what I mean? So that would be my sell on how to find somebody if they're
Yeah,
not just
the biggest thing that puts me off is, what we call mutton dressed as lamb. So, a girl who is over dolled up, utterly, big false eyelash. I mean, some men like this. It really puts me off. Thick makeup, short skirt
yeah. I
up
just
there,
think that
right up to the top.
yeah,
I don't like it. I don't like it at
yeah.
all.
It's a red
Really
flag,
puts me-
lack of confidence.
or that they sleep around all the time. You
Yeah.
know,
But if you do that, you're gonna ruin your confidence as well. Because if you're sleeping around as a woman, what's happening is people are just having sex with you and disposing of you. So those kind of people, even if they're pretending to look really confident, I think they're going to be deep down really broken as well. I think that's kind of a given. There's lots of science to kind of prove that, like if you're sleeping around, if you're a woman having sex with lots of people, the oxytocin, is it the bonding chemical, goes down, obviously, because you're abusing your body. And not sex is supposed to be a thing where it helps you build connection. Like that kind of makes sense, not just this thing you just screw somebody for 1 second and don't see them again. Cool. I want to move on to, so I'm trying to get the most out of this 1 hour. How can you become successful? I've already talked about this kind of religious way of like, you've got to have purpose and meaning, otherwise you'll fall at every hurdle. You'd be like, oh, why is this all not fair? But if you have meaning and you know it's for a reason, you actually enjoy the challenges, right? That's one thing. Let's just try to put God out of the picture as much as possible. I'm gonna make it so I can give advice that's more palatable to even non-religious people, people who hate religion, right? One thing I would say is there's a power in just being consistent, doing small and consistent things. Now that's really hard for most people because most people want the solution. They want to be successful. They want all their goals tomorrow, which is stupid. It's not going to work. But let me just sell this for a minute. I really enjoy absolutely every day because I work 5 minutes on my various projects a day. That's it. And I actually feel successful because of that. I'm not sure if I sold it very well, but I really do enjoy that process. And a lot of people who become really successful, they say, when you achieve the goal, it's kind of an anticlimax, but what they really enjoyed was the process. Is that enticing in any way? Because I think that's a really powerful way to be successful.
possibly. I mean, I do think being goal orientated matters. But you're right that goals can be anticlimactic. You have to make, I think, a long term plan is important, where you want to see yourself. And then probably the most important way to be successful is like the grind mindset, is to not think about, because the small thing on a small horizon, the small successes feel like nothing, and so you feel like you're achieving nothing. But put together over like 5 years or something, you get to the top of the mountain. But you don't realize it if you're only focusing on your steps along the way.
Yes.
So and in order to achieve that, in order to get to the top, you have to grind all the way along. You have to not stop, because if you stop, you'll end up in 5 years' time, you'll still be stuck there. I look at some of my friends, my old friend group, and yes, I haven't ended up with the most successful life, but at one point I was on track to maybe be a really successful sportsman. It just didn't work out for me. But lots of my friends ended up like stuck in dead-end jobs. Many of them ended up stuck on drugs. They got into recreational drugs. And basically, Callie, like 10 years have gone by like that, boom. And they haven't achieved anything over 10 years. And that's because they haven't they haven't grinded it at anything. Like when I was grinding at Muay Thai, which is a sport,
Yeah.
for those who don't know, I was, you know, getting really successful. I got to the highest level for a brief period of time. And I could have stuck it out. I got to a professional,
Hmm.
and it's my choice to give it up.
Hmm.
Recently, but
Yeah. I'm trying. Okay, I want to make it so that people don't consider it a grind, but enjoy the process. Like I just enjoy taking another step. Like, okay, one of my projects is an app, right? Okay, how do you enjoy the process? And the way I enjoy it is because I'm going to it's even if I die before it becomes successful, even though I hope it'll be done in half a year or something. Um, I want to contribute. This is the thing that a lot of people don't understand about human beings, and psychologists have been actually saying this for a very long time, that we need to have some sort of purpose. And when you have that purpose, you can get, what was the phrase? If you have a why, you can get through anyhow. Who's that? Nietzsche or something? Do you know that one?
I've not heard that before. No.
Okay, but I mean, psychologists have been saying this for a very long time that we think we're motivated just by money and whatever, but actually we're motivated by meaning. So, a guy called Viktor Frankl, who I talk about all the time, he said you can't find happiness unless you have meaning in your life. Um, so, if you can find like a higher meaning and work and kind of create a goal within that, like my higher meaning through the app, even though I want to make loads of money out of it, I attach a higher meaning, which is I'm going to, it's going to sound really geeky because but you got to find a niche, right? All of computing, the whole journey of computing is about making computers disappear and making them easier to use. Like I won't go into too much, but that's quite one of my apps is kind of like a sort of a drawing app that has no buttons and it just knows what you want to do, right? So I'm enjoying every day adding like taking one more step towards that, and I enjoy that. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is try to find a higher meaning and realize that's how human beings are motivated and how they actually work best, and then try to um, find a goal within that higher meaning. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, you're talking about a goal, really. You are
Yeah,
talking about being goal orientated in a way,
but
like
not
the
to
higher
make
meaning, the
money.
higher go. Okay,
Have a meaning with that goal. I think that will make you
sure.
enjoy the process.
There's some deep truth actually what you're getting at here, and it's that people do end up being focused on becoming something or achieving something rather than becoming a better becoming better. So like look, they'll say I don't know, I want to look, they want to show off being something rather than become it or whatever. And the people who achieve real success are the ones who just focus on the thing and get it. Look, like people try to attract women by showing off, or
Mm,
by like, look, if I get a nice car, I'll get a woman, or look, if I get a high powerful job, I'll get a woman, or whatever. And so they
mm,
seek these things out. Whereas the guys who actually achieve things, they just like focus on, I don't know, achieving something without thinking about like the girl, and then they'll get the
mm.
girl in the end.
That's a really interesting idea because I want to give like I think work on being a really nice person, and you're nice to everybody, including men. And I find that you just keep being nice to everybody, and then women start getting more attracted to you, and good women particularly. And I would say also filter out all the bad women, just like ignore them. I yeah. So that's just my thought. You have the last say. There's only about a minute left, and I really want to end on time. I don't want to take any more than I promised of your time, and I really appreciate you being here. By the way, I hope we do loads more. You have the last minute and your thoughts about the way forwards for white men.
Well, let's bring it back to the start, I guess. The problem of suicide. Men are feeling empty in the world. They do need meaning. The thing that gave me the most meaning in life, I think, was the thing that had structure to it. So I empathize with you and your message, absolutely, Khalid, that like religion is something with a structure that people can follow. And let's say, even if you don't believe in it, if you just turn up and do the stuff, you'll eventually learn a way and a way of life, and this can and that's worked for millions of other people. So it's tried and tested over time, and I understand the power of your message. So like I was relating it to something that worked for me. What worked for me was karate, which has a structure, a belt order system, and there's a structure to it. You start as a beginner and work up through the grades and take tests and exams, and eventually you pass out as a
Almost
black
like a
belt.
religion, isn't it?
It is. It's known as the martial way, So, so I fundamentally agree that a structured system can really help someone who's lost in life. So, yeah, find some structure.
Cool. I really appreciate time. I think we had a great conversation. I hope we have many more of these. Thank you very much,
Cool.
Stephen. Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye.
Next
Bye.
time. Bye.
Thanks, everybody else.